Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. The entrance examination for the prestigious Indian Institutes of Technology will go completely online from 2018. The Joint Admission Board, which is the policy-making body on IIT admissions, took the decision at a meeting in New Delhi on Sunday. The HRD Ministry had earlier introduced the option of taking the joint entrance examination mains online. The JEE Mains is the entrance examination for admission to engineering courses offered across the country and a qualifying exam for JEE Advanced, which is required for admission to the prestigious IITs and NITs. The concept was being discussed for many years, but it was necessary to have adequate infrastructure to conduct the exam online. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze if all competitive exams should be held online. Joining me on the program today are Shailja Chandra, former Chief Secretary of Delhi, Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, Consulting Editor of the Business Standard, Madhavendra Shukla, Consultant, National Skill Development Agency, and we'll also be joined on the phone line by a former IIT Director. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Shailja Chandra, I'd like to begin with you. Of course, what do you think of this move of making the entrance exam completely online, and what has prompted the authorities really to take this decision?
I think it's a very progressive step because it shows that we are moving with the times. If those aspiring to join the IITs are not able to take an online exam, then no one else would be able to do it. So that's number one. They would definitely need the competence. Number two, it would bring down drastically the use of paper and a lot of repetitive work that is done for examinations. It would avoid the mistakes that happen when, grace marks are given because some examination paper had a wrong question or something wasn't put properly or it was out of the syllabus. All those things would be taken care of. And I think it's an excellent idea and it is totally workable. I think as far as how it happened, as far as I remember, it was something that was resisted by some sections, but ultimately it went to the Supreme Court, which said that this ought to be an online examination because of various experience which had been gathered. And I think it's a good idea, and they're doing it very quickly, which is really progressive. As to whether it should apply to the IAS, I'll reply when you ask me.
Okay, fair enough. Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, this, like Shailja Chandra just pointed out, there are several positive aspects to something like this. But what has been the experience as far as some of these online examinations are concerned? Do you think it's going to work in a country like India, especially at times when you've seen several systems crash and hang also?
Yeah, Frank, that's a point. See, what happens is exams, if we look at the larger picture, the stakes are very high for all these exams. Shailja Chandra talked about the IAS examination, but along with that, all the competitive examinations that are coming along, almost with each one of them, there is the risk of leak, and that's coming along. Now, what happens is that it just shows that how high the stakes are, and so to what extent is somebody, an examinee, willing to go to try to undercut the examination. So what you essentially need, whether it's online or whether it's any other system, is to ensure that adequate funds are put in to make these examinations stand up to hacking experiments. Hacking, I say, as in even offline, that's also a hacking thing, where examinees passing on chits, and also hacking as in online or anything. That is where will be the real test of it. Some years ago we did a study when I was in Indian Express about the examination per head, the amount of money that is spent on each examination. Now, for the IAS examination, the cost is something like 50,000 per examinee. For IIT examinations, the examination cost, this was based on what is the fees that's paid and what is the tender notice, it's about 500 rupees. For the state level examinations, we have had problems like in Madhya Pradesh, we had the classic case of the medical exams which were pilfered. The cost is sometimes like 10 rupee or 15 rupee per examinee. Now, at that cost, obviously, there is going to be very little ability of the system to ensure that the examination is not violated, the sanctity of it is not. So essentially what it requires is putting in money and putting in, because only then you can build up the robust defense mechanism to be able to ensure that the examinations are really fair.
Okay, fair enough. Let me bring in Madhvendra Shukla into the picture. Ensuring that some of these competitive exams are held online, can we say that it will be a foolproof system in place, and is that the way forward really?
To answer your question, I would like to start with the homework that I have done. I have brought 3 posters here. The first poster says that for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So that's the poster. Teacher is saying to students, for the exam, you have to climb that tree. First, so I have got another poster which says that today is quiz day, and the teacher is saying to student, once I learn how to use Google, isn't that all education I really need? That's the second poster. So if you know Google, you are eligible to be sitting for a competitive exam because you got computer literacy. Okay. Now third poster says, I attended an elite college that costs $50,000 a year. So the recruiter says, unfortunately, we are looking for people with judgment. So now, to answer your question, sir, seeing our current prevailing education system and the consonance which is not matching with the standards of students, and we also see that the level of difficulty being pressed in these competitive exams is something that doesn't matches to the level of education or the current education system we got. Okay, so in my opinion, if we think that all competitive exams can be done online with a foolproof security, I'm not going to buy that argument, sir, because we are a populous country, and when we see that the level of education is not up to the standard, and then we think if we can buy the hat from a developed country that produces actors of today, which means that this cap will make you eligible to enter into the elitist kind of situation or the institutions. Sir, I totally disagree with this fact. Okay. So I think we should think upon the idea of going online for every competitive exam. My point, sir. Okay,
fair enough. Let me bring in Dr. Surendra Prasad, former director, IIT Delhi. Dr. Prasad, you've been listening patiently to everything that's been said so far. I want to know what your view is, because all of this has come out of the IIT JEE exams being made online compulsorily from 2018. So I want to know the former director of IIT Delhi's view on this.
Well, thank you for asking me, but I'm not sure that I'm the most qualified person today to answer this question, but nevertheless I'll attempt. The reason I'm saying that is I'm slightly out of touch and I do not really know what the exact planning for this system is. But having said that, I would say that it's a very welcome move, something that we should have perhaps attempted a few years ago, because technology is important for the scales of interest for various kinds of exams that we hold today. We are a large country, and doing the old paper and pencil and paper and pen kind of exams has its own problems when you do it on such a large scale. Of course, if you do it online, there are challenges, as many of the speakers have pointed out. Those challenges have to be addressed. And I do not see that these cannot be addressed. I think they can be addressed, and perhaps they will be. There will be problems of logistics, of infrastructure, of making it accessible to rural areas, remote areas. And there will be challenges of security. The protocols will have to be such that the exam is fail-safe and secure. All those challenges will have to be solved. But in this day and age, these are challenges that can be solved. And I'm quite hopeful of the success of this experiment, and therefore of other exams following suit very soon. That's my view, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Stay with us, Dr. Prasad. I'm coming to you later on in the program as well for another reaction. But, I think the consensus is when the IITs themselves do not have an online examination format, or if they don't have an online format, then how can the others follow suit? And that's something that Shailaja Chandra said in the beginning of the program as well. I'm going to go back to Ms. Chandra now and, talk about some of the other competitive examinations. You did mention the IAS and you said that you'll talk about the IAS when we get there. We are there now. What do you think as far as the IAS is concerned?
See, when you talk of IAS, I include the combined competitive examinations for several services. It is the same examination for so many different services. Now, let us be very clear. In the case of the IITs, I qualified what I said because anyone who aspires to join the IITs is obviously proficient in physics, chemistry, mathematics, and everything to do with the, you might say, science kind of orientation. That necessarily means that they would have become conversant with the use of computers, and most of the questions would be of an objective kind or would have very little requirement of subjective essay type of answers. So it lends itself to that kind of, you might say, examination online. I agree that in rural areas and things, people would not be able to reach that level of proficiency, but that has got nothing to do with having an exam. That is because they are not reaching the level that the urban students have reached, and that is across the board. It doesn't just go for IITs, it's in all walks.
So shouldn't they have aspirations?
The inequity is there, but that's not the subject of the discussion. Coming to the IAS and allied examinations, I want to make it clear that the examination has a large amount of written work which requires communication skills. Communication skills necessarily mean that you will have to write in English or a language that the UPSC permits, and you'll have to type it in. There's nothing wrong with learning typing, but you have to be very quick. I do not see that most of those 3 lakh students, actually it's not 3 lakhs, about 9 lakh register, ultimately about 4 lakh students or candidates sit for the exam. I doubt if even 10% of them would be proficient in being able to write those answers in essay. What would be even more difficult is to find examiners who would be able to do the examination study and give marks online. Today, if you talk of anybody in the generation of 60 plus, I'm not even talking about 70 plus, I'm talking about 60 plus, or they are not that conversant, and very often most people say, at least I find them saying, please send me a hard copy. I'm not familiar with the computer. I don't like to do things online. I don't get the same feeling as if there is a paper copy. So that would happen because the examiners come from different backgrounds and they would be for different subjects, history, chemistry, so many others. So with this kind of a situation, I feel that moving on to the combined competitive examinations is not the same bag as the IITs. And there the aspirants are across the country and they fight over every little thing, whether English should be introduced, whether aptitude tests should be introduced. And the next thing would be, we're not conversant with computers, we don't have broadband, we don't have all the facilities, there's been a breakdown of services, and they would say we don't have proficiency in typing. All this put together, I think things are not today ripe for talking about the combined competitive examinations.
Okay, that's very well summed up by you there. So I'm going to move forward, and yeah, you had a point to make.
I would like to add a point here. In general, we know that competitive exams are divided into aptitude-based test and knowledge-based test. As Madam is saying that IAS, she talked about IAS, and if we look at the larger picture, we find that the knowledge-based test like civil services, if you ever think even wildly to make it online, I would be the last person on this earth to buy this assumption. First point, sir, because a knowledge-based test requires you need to have in-depth knowledge about the subject. You cannot afford to have superficial knowledge and then you promise, or you have the guts to say that I would be able to clear civil services examination. Sir, I have been the aspirant of civil services and I couldn't clear it. I have no shame in saying that, because as long as you do not dive deep into subjects, okay, which is required for a knowledge based test, you cannot say that you would be able to clear it. Therefore, making knowledge based test, or it is important to identify knowledge based test, and then on the basis of that it should be decided whether the online test would work here or not. So in my opinion, the aptitude test and knowledge based test should be categorized, and based on their nature, online test could be devised.
Okay. Shubha, this is not my subject area or my area of expertise really. So
Neither mine.
yeah, but just for argument's sake, can't we apply a knowledge-based test online? Can't there be a system that is developed or a software that is developed where it can actually be done online? Because instead of using because the IELTS and TOEFL and other such examinations also have similar kind of examinations where you listen, where you do everything online and then submit your tests, and then the results are declared.
Exactly. In fact, I was listening to you, sir, and I'm just wondering, I mean, do you presume that the IIT student is not showing his knowledge, or the online examination will not have knowledge component in it? I don't think that is the argument. The argument is clearly that whether the reason why it's being made online is to do two things. One, to ensure that there is no corruption in the examination. Two, to ensure that there is larger number of people can appear for the examination from the places where they are, instead of having to make a costly transport to cities, to centers. And we know the costs that especially those in the non-metro areas make. I mean, when there are some of these examinations for which practically the entire state comes to a stop on that day. There are many of these examinations when the student body moves. It's actually very painful for them. It's painful for others also. So online actually reduces that. The other thing that would possibly reduces the point of cheating in the examination. That is what is being talked about, because what is now happening, for instance, in this
but on the other side of the spectrum, are some of these centers or these potential centers in the rural areas, are they equipped really to handle some of these exams online?
But exactly as Shailaja Chandra pointed out, that is something that can be reached. But it's not that the person has to sit there in the rural area. For instance, if the person feels as of today that I do not think that my village or my area is good enough to be, has good broadband connectivity, well, she was traveling in any case, so she can similarly travel for this examination also. No one is stopping there. So that part is taken care of. It is just an additional facility that will happen. It will not be as if that once it's online, everybody will be, sort of stuck or stapled to a particular place where they will have to appear for the examination. People can still move and go to a place where they feel confident. So if somebody feels that we want to come to, say, Delhi or Patna or Bhubaneswar, these are Allahabad, these are famous centers for examination, they can jolly well come there and appear for the online thing. So that part is taken care of. Regarding the knowledge, so that part is taken care of. What is happening is that many of the examinations currently, which are half online and half offline, actually allows gaming of the system. I refer to the Madhya Pradesh medical examination, where actually the OCR sheets which are being used to write the examinations are being fudged. And that was one of the major things that we found out. So those could be stopped by making it totally online, that there is no chance of a sheet coming in for an examinee to play games with the system. And the third part, which he's pointing out, the knowledge based, well, I suppose any examination, as you also pointed out rightly, that knowledge can be demonstrated any which way. It can be demonstrated online, it can be demonstrated offline. It's not necessary that I have to take a pen in my hand to be able to demonstrate knowledge, which I cannot demonstrate online. It's that I don't think is a question that, is a problem that can, problem anywhere at all.
All right. Dr. Surendra Prasad, should we then look at these exams in two ways? Look at the merits of the exams and look at what the exam examination will produce from an aspirant's point of view, and then decide whether it should be online or whether it should be a written examination. And also we should consider the Indian diaspora and everyone involved as far as these tests itself are concerned, take everything or everyone on board and then decide how to go about it.
Well, you mentioned so many parameters, and if you keep on optimizing for all those parameters, perhaps it takes years to put anything in place. I think we have to take a decision to start, which has been done at least for the case of IITs, and ways and means will have to be found and can be found to make sure that the required reach happens, the required diversity is taken, the kind of diversity that you address is taken care of adequately, if not completely. These are challenges. As I said, there will be many challenges, and these are some of the challenges that many of the speakers are mentioning. But I think these are all solvable challenges, including the challenge of designing exams to consider essay-based answers, essay kind of answers. I mean, technology has gone a long way in these directions as well. It's not that you necessarily have to have so many examiners sifting through every little bit that is written on the computer or is fed into the computer. There are automatic answer evaluation systems which are coming to place. Not everything is perfect, but very soon they will be really very nearly perfect. A lot of progress is being made in these directions.
Okay, we need to see what is working for us and then take the best thing that is working for us forward, really. Very quick comments from Madhvendra Shukla. Now, what has been the success story for some of these online competitive examinations?
I think I'm not the suitable person to be able to answer that question. But as you have asked, I would like to say all those aptitude exams like CAT and CLAT or maybe GMAT, I mean, they have really set standards for online exams in India. And at the same time, the one exam like the bank PO exam, which is conducted by IBPS, it has also set good standards in India. But the thing, what challenges they have been facing, something is something that relates to fool proof security, which you raised the first point. Because in the online exam, there are good possibilities of proxies.
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, it's the biggest challenge which is being addressed, and at the same time, I mean, we have not gained much success into it.
Okay, sure. Shailja Chandra, please close the show for us with your concluding remarks on really what's the way forward and what best suits us.
Well, as I said at the beginning, I think that taking this step for the IITs has been a very progressive decision. And the sooner it starts, I'm told that one of the IITs will do it next year and one will do it in 2019 and others will follow suit. That is a very good thing for the country, and it's very obvious that when aspiring candidates do sit for all these American examinations and they sit without a murmur and they get in or they don't get in, but they get rated in no time, a lot of time is saved, and there's never a complaint, never ever is there a complaint that somebody fudged the system.
Sure.
So there is an advantage and it should be followed through.
All
For
right.
the IAS and allied examinations, I would only like to say that, it is something which will take a little more time. UPSC has managed these exams exceedingly well. The minute you make it online, 90% of the aspirants would not be able to sit for the exam.
Sure.
I don't know whether that is a position which the public will accept that easily. They will not be able to do it.
Okay, I'm completely out of time on the program today. So on that note, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you, Shailja Chandra, Shubhava Bhattacharjee, Shukla and Surendra Prasad for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. Bye-bye.